Welcome back to another explainer. Today we're taking a deep dive into an absolutely profound ancient text. We're looking at scroll 56 of the Mahaprajnaparamita Sastra. So get ready, because we are embarking on the ultimate hero's journey of the mind, figuring out how to balance ultimate emptiness with, grounded everyday action. Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever wondered, if everything in the universe is ultimately empty or just an illusion, why on earth do bodhisattvas work so incredibly hard to save it? I mean, it's the ultimate philosophical paradox, right? How can someone act with this immense, tireless compassion while simultaneously maintaining this deep belief that the world itself is kind of just a mirage? So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover the mystery of Prajnaparamita, why Mara fears bodhisattvas, the protection of the devas, worldly versus out-of-world actions, and finally, the true power of non-attainment. All right, Section 1. The mystery of Prajnaparamita and balancing emptiness and action. It's actually amazing how ancient literature so often holds the exact keys we need for modern mindfulness and psychological balance. So what exactly is Prajnaparamita? Well, it translates to the perfection of wisdom. But hold on, this isn't just your everyday street smart wisdom. It's a highly specific, profound realization of ultimate emptiness. But here's the absolute critical distinction. It completely avoids nihilism. So instead of just throwing their hands up and giving up on the world because it's supposedly empty, a bodhisattva uses this wisdom to continue actively practicing the paths of enlightenment. Now, what's really interesting here is how the philosopher Nagarjuna poses the exact problem our logical brains stumble on. He says, if all dharmas, meaning all things and phenomena in the universe, are ultimately empty, one shouldn't cultivate merit. Basically, why bother doing good deeds? But he resolves it brilliantly. He explains that true Prajnaparamita doesn't destroy good deeds or just fall into cold annihilation. It actually purifies them. It's a wisdom that allows you to operate fully and beautifully in the world without being weighed down by it at all. Moving on to Section 2. Why does Mara fear bodhisattvas? Confronting the cosmic villain. In this text, our cosmic villain is Mara. He's the demon king of the desire realm, and he actually represents our own deep-seated ego, our attachments, and our spiritual blind spots. And let me tell you, Mara absolutely hates bodhisattvas. Why? First off, they literally empty out his realm of desire. They pull beings right out of the endless cycle of life and death, guiding them straight to nirvana, never to return. And frankly, from Mara's perspective, he's losing his followers. It's just like how our own ego fights desperately to stay relevant and in control of our daily actions. Mara acts out of pure jealousy and the sheer terror of losing his grip. So, because of this massive existential threat, the text describes how Mara goes on the offensive. He attacks with these terrifying illusions, manifesting as giant dragons, creating massive storms, or throwing out the sharpest, most alluring worldly temptations. His whole goal here is to just break the bodhisattva's focus and resolve. And you can really think of this as a powerful metaphor for the distractions, the anxieties, and the fears that are constantly trying to pull us away from our own goals and inner peace. But here's where the text gives us an absolutely stunning metaphor. It says, like having no wound, one cannot be poisoned. It's brilliant, because the bodhisattva truly embodies emptiness and doesn't cling to an ego. Mara's attacks literally just pass right through them. There's nowhere for the poison to enter. When you don't have this rigid, fragile ego to defend, you become completely invulnerable to these kinds of spiritual attacks. No ego, no wound. Okay, Section 3, Protection and Awe of Devas, the Cosmic Allies. So if Mara represents the villainous pushback of the ego, the Devas, these are the heavenly beings and cosmic rulers like Kausika. They're the ultimate cosmic allies, and they have some phenomenal reasons for acting as this sort of cosmic secret service for bodhisattvas. Why? Well, because bodhisattvas bring immense tangible good to the universe. They actively cut off the evil paths, they introduce good deeds, and they eradicate real-world suffering like poverty, disaster, and disease. Plus, they constantly practice the four immeasurable minds, meaning they just radiate infinite compassion and joy. These heavenly beings recognize that bodhisattvas are literally the ultimate force for good. And they achieve all this immense good through the 6 paramitas, or the 6 perfections. We're talking about practices like absolute generosity, unbreakable patience, and tireless effort. The bodhisattva continuously practices these 6 perfections to generate a massive positive impact, constantly dedicating that energy outward rather than hoarding it for themselves. Which brings us to Section 4, Worldly versus Out of World, the core metaphysical contrast. So, the crucial point is, we're now at the absolute most important philosophical concept hidden within Scroll 56. There is a profound difference between worldly and out-of-world practice. Worldly practice is doing good, sure, but with strings attached. You're fixated on yourself as the generous giver, the other person as the receiver, and you're deeply attached to the gift itself. The text warns that this ultimately leads to arrogance. Now contrast this with out-of-world practice. This is doing good while fully realizing emptiness, with absolutely zero ego. There's no rigid concept of giver, receiver, or gift, and that leads to pure, unadulterated wisdom. It's the profound difference between doing good just to get a pat on the back versus doing good with true, deep selflessness. The ancient text calls this higher state non-attainment. Doing good with non-attainment means acting out of pure compassion without keeping score and without building up what we might call a spiritual ego. I really want you to reflect on this for a second. Think about your own motivations at work, in your relationships, or even just when you do a quick favor for a friend. Are you secretly keeping a ledger, waiting for recognition? Or are you operating with non-attainment? Understanding this completely shifts how we experience our daily lives. And finally, Section 5, the true power of non-attainment and dispelling inner conflict. Let's look at the practical, everyday power of actually living this out. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. The text uses another incredible metaphor here. It says, like the Maggi medicine. When a venomous snake smells it, it cannot advance and turns away. Prajnaparamita, this perfection of wisdom, acts exactly like this legendary Maggi medicine. It naturally repels the venomous snakes of our own anger, our lust, and our arrogance. And honestly, the best part, it neutralizes them without us even having to put up a fight. The logic here is incredibly freeing. Prajnaparamita basically extinguishes all worldly disputes. How does it do that? Well, it dissolves our internal friction by entirely removing the self that gets offended in the first place. Think about it. If there's no rigid ego standing there demanding to be respected, there's simply nothing for the world to clash against. That is the ultimate secret to unshakable inner peace. Let's move on and see how this builds into a really clear three-step formula, the Bodhisattva's method. Step 1, realize the ultimate emptiness of all things. Step 2, engage deeply in compassionate action anyway. And step 3, dedicate all that merit outwardly without claiming a single drop of it for your own ego. It's just a beautifully paradoxical way to live, right? It perfectly bridges the absolute highest philosophy with the most grounded, loving action. Which leaves us with a vital question to carry with us today. When you step out into the world and do your very next good deed, are you seeking the reward of the ego or the wisdom of emptiness? It's a profound challenge from an ancient text that remains absolutely incredibly relevant for us today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the mind, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.